Hello everyone, I am Crawlers and these are some cool guns showed off in the second Battlefield 1 trailer that DICE released a couple of days ago. And honestly, before I go into a dry monotone speech about, listing the guns, I gotta say, whoever DICE does these trailers for DICE needs to get a bonus. I mean, well, the music choice was definitely bad, but their gameplay and the only in battlefield moments were always spot on, and the trailer is just filled with action, and it was always like this. I remember watching Battlefield 3 trailers. They always got me hard. But all right, here we go. Let's get into the weapons. Oh wait, actually, before I do this, I have one more note. I have to note the elephant, or the pigeon in the room, as it were. These really badass use of technology at the time, the carrier pigeons, which obviously didn't, they didn't have UAVs back then, so messages were relayed using carrier pigeons, like artillery coordinates and calls for air support, I suppose. Phones weren't a widely seen thing on the front line, and obviously being tethered by a cable, they weren't all that portable. Alright, so these are British guys inside a tank, and this dude shoots a Webley revolver out of the gun port. Now, we already saw this pistol a couple of times in the artwork and the trailers before. Um, this is a British Army Service revolver caliber 455, made by who else? Webley and Scott, and also called the Top Break revolver for obvious reasons. I'm guessing it was a very good design because it stayed in service with the Brits till 1963. Now, this dude fires off a pistol right next to another guy's head, and he's actually a German uh, sticking his gun into the gun port of the tank from the other side, pardon the innuendos, and understandably deafening him. This is actually a very recognizable gun of the time, the Mauser C96, called by the Westerners the broom handle gun. It's also the model for Han Solo's blaster in Star Wars, we all know that. In fact, a lot of German and British guns were of the time, so um, if you want to hear more on this topic, check out my Star Wars Blasters history video linked to the back of this one or in the description. Now, these pistols were semi-automatic, obviously, firing this 7.63 Mauser cartridge, and they had a very distinctive looking 10-round magazine that you could load with a stripper clip from the top, as we will see later on, or maybe in the Battlefield 1 livestream that you saw. These did have a detachable wooden stock that incidentally served as the gun's holster, but they didn't have the sights that DICE included in the standard customization, I guess, for all, or most, maybe, sidearms. Uh, there were no ghost rings or whatever these are, aperture sights in during World War One on this gun, and obviously, Battlefield 1 will have a progression and unlock system like every other Battlefield game out there, so, this isn't that surprising. So, here's a fun rifle to see in the game. It's a Mexican Mondragon, and it's actually the first attempt by Mexico to develop a semi-automatic or self-loading rifle. It was also the first self-loading rifle to see combat, and designed by Manuel Mondragon. These were made by SIG in Switzerland. So, how would you say did a Mexican rifle end up in German hands? Well, in 1914, the German Empire bought the rifles that SIG made and the ones that hadn't been yet shipped off to Mexico, which could have been as much as 3,600 units as they and they tried to modify them for the 7.9 by 57 millimeter Espatron or the Mauser 8 millimeter cartridge. And regrettably, that didn't take so well. Remember, this was the first semi-automatic rifle fielded by an army in wartime, so there were definitely growing pains. They also had issues with mod, where the rifle basically lived, I mean, the trench warfare, And while trying to remedy this, the Imperial German Flying Corps decided to adapt the rifle as, well, obviously aerial combat would not subject the rifle to as much mud or any mud at all, in fact. And obviously, these were a step up from their bolt action Gewehr 98s. Here's another noodle scratcher that really set me back quite a while, mostly because these sights are not anywhere near standard, especially on what turned out to be an SMG, or at least I thought, because there were really no standard sights back then. I mean, there was no NATO standard or anything like that, and each country had their own system, in part, to make their things, their weapons, desirable buys for countries that didn't want to manufacture guns by themselves. I mean, the Russian army did quite a lot of buying back then, as did other nations. So this to me looks like a Beretta Model 1918 submachine gun with the magazine being inserted from the top and having a bayonet attachment for the in-game bayonet lunges. And this was a cool system because in real life it actually allowed for the cartridges to be fed using gravity only. And another interesting thing that I just thought of about the sights that, well, you can see on the screen is that if they are canted, so in the game that actually kind of makes sense. It kind of helps you when aiming because it doesn't obstruct the view as much of the screen, when you're zoomed in and when you're aiming down sight. Alright, so this one's really interesting but not as outlandish as the gun before it. This is the Hotchkiss M1909 Benet Merci machine gun, light machine gun, uh, kind of light in the name only. This one was kind of easier to identify because it feeds from um, that solid ammo clip that you can see on the side there. It's a French light machine gun that many other armies used, including the Americans and the Brits. Okay, this one took me forever to understand till I remembered that I saw a Forgotten Weapons episode on something that looked similar to this a while ago, and I seriously recommend to anyone and everyone out there to subscribe to the Forgotten Weapons channel on YouTube, as Ian does these kick-ass videos on guns and disassembles them in front of you. So it's really awesome to see. So this seems to be the Italian Cerigatti automatic rifle, and these supposedly had select fire capabilities where you could set it to burst fire. So interesting to see what DICE does with this, whether they make it semi-auto or full auto. Okay, this one's a little bit less outlandish and something we've seen before. This is the German MP-18 submachine gun, and this was Theodore Bergman's design and probably the first submachine gun ever used in combat. Um, the kick-ass thing about this gameplay is that the guy is holding it while he is being driven on a motorcycle, and he's sitting there in the sidecar kind of shooting at the bad guys. And I'm pretty sure these things didn't have the bayonet attachments in real life. I mean, why would it? Okay, this is another cool and very quick use of the C96 Mauser in game. Um, What's cool about this is the wooden stock, which I'm sure will act to stabilize the gun in some way, as it did in Hardline, but you know, as a selectable attachment for the sidearm. But as I said in the beginning, these sights, I mean, they make sense gameplay wise, but history wise, probably not so much. And obviously, I can think of nothing cooler than to rush the enemy on horseback in the game where you're kind of throwing dynamite at them at the same time. So I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. So, thanks for watching. Please rate and share this video as it helps my channel grow. Check out my other videos at the end of this one. And remember, in Soviet Russia, YouTube subscribes you.